I have 15-minute time, so either I'm going to speak very, very quickly or I'm going to cut everything short because I usually have 1 hour slots. But anyhow, we'll do our best. So I'd like to mention a few points about the significance of the month of Shvat, my birthday month. Rosh Chodesh Shvat is the day that Bnei Israel stood on the other side of the Jordan River, and Moshe began to teach Sefer Dvarim, Sefer Mishneh Torah. And he expounded until the 7th of Adar, which was, of course, the day that he was nifter. These were and are holy days. Anticipation of arrival to the Holy Land, conquering the Promised Land. These days, from the 1st of Shvat until the 7th of Adar, are a tkufa. It's a time period that is dedicated to chidush, dedicated to newness. Hitchadshut in our relationship with the kadosh Baruch Hu. Now, for Breslovers or anybody leaning towards Breslov, Rabbi Nosson teaches that after Rabbi Nachman was nifter on Sukkot, the 5th night of Sukkot, the first opportunity for his Hasidim to pray at his kever was Rosh Chodesh Shvat. The astral symbol of this month is a bucket in Yiddishkeit. The secular symbol is a water carrier. A bucket is a vessel of transmission. And on this month, ladies, we are commissioned to fill our spiritual buckets. We must refill ourselves in order to pour forth more Torah wisdom to our families. Now, did you know that eating is very much associated with the month of Shvat? But what kind of eating? We're talking about holy eating. The Baal Shem Tov teaches that eating is not a b'diavad, an afterthought. It's an opportunity to meet Hashem. Actually, Rabbi Moshe Weinberger of Woodmere says that in some ways our eating can be more holy than our praying. Now I ask you, how is that possible? How is it possible that eating can be more holy than praying? Prayer, tefillah, is an act specifically designed for our connecting to Hashem, whereas eating is mundane, it is physical. So by elevating it through our thoughts, we transform and we uplift and we connect to Hashem countless times of the day when we are eating, and even more so on the festivals and on the Yom Tovim and on Shabbat. Ladies, Hashem put us in this world to find him in everything. We are not placed in a body to run away from it and run away from the world, but rather to engage the world, contrary to some other faiths. And I said this yesterday on a Zoom international to my students at the Beis Din, and I really did see the nations of the world, and their faiths are focused differently in terms of how we connect to Hashem and what the purpose of our being in this world is. The Baal Shem Tov says, "You are where your thoughts are," the famous saying. On Tu B'Shvat, we partake of the blessings of the land, the simcha u'bekavanah. My favorite verse in the entire Tanakh from Mishlei is Bechol drachecha de'eho. Know Hashem in all your ways. So I like to say, the popular saying is, you are what you eat. So I like to say, you are how you eat. You are how you eat as a Jew. So let's talk about holy eating and what it is, and we'll get into Tu B'Shvat in a moment. Rabbi Nachman teaches, Achilat Shabbat nasek kusha, velakut gamur b'lo ta'aravet b'sigim. Eating on Shabbat, for the sake of Shabbat, focus on elevating the holy sparks. Eating is holy because it ensures a person's well-being and binds his body with his soul, in order that we are fit to serve Hashem. The food that we eat in holiness, think about it now as you're munching, is spiritual food, even though it still has calories, okay? Practical ways to elevate our eating. 1, think mindfully that we are eating to sustain ourselves, not to indulge, okay, but to strengthen our body, which is the vessel that contains our soul. Number 2, when we focus on the correct bracha, to say patiently and say the correct bracha achrona. I teach my students, not that I always remember to do it, take the bracha, take the item in your right hand. We mitkaven for the bracha. If you don't know the bracha, you have to think And then you have to think more on what the bracha is when you see a complex food. Okay, we won't get into brachas. When we eat in a refined manner, not like Esav, which said, Haliteni name adom, adom, I said, pour that red stuff down my throat so that he wouldn't feel that he was actually eating the mourner's food because his grandfather, Zedi Avram, had died. That's called non-mindful eating, okay? That's called throat stuffing. That's not a Jewish way to eat. And when we elevate our eating, we actually tame our animal soul, our nefesh behami. And like I said, so you are how you eat. Tu b'shvat. Man is a tree of the field. Ki adam etz hasadeh, as it says in Sefer Dvarim, chapter 20, verse 19, the Jewish calendar reserves one day a year, the new year for the trees, to contemplate our affinity to the trees and what this can teach us. So the Gemara in Tainus, Amud 7, asks, how is it that a man resembles a tree? And what are the tree's primary components? One, we have the roots, which anchorage the ground and supply it with water and nutrients. Two, we have the trunk, the branches, and the leaves, which is its body. And three, we have the fruits, which contains the seeds to reproduce itself. And this is parallel to the spiritual life of man. This is parallel to the spiritual life of man. Roots equal faith, our source of nurture and perseverance. The trunk, the branches, and the leaves are the body of our spiritual lives, our intellectual, our emotional, our practical achievements. And the fruits are our spiritual procreation, the power to influence others, to plant a seed in a fellow human being, to see it sprout, to see it grow, and to see it bear fruits in our children, in our kiruv, in our grandchildren, whatever Hashem grants us. So let's study roots. Roots, we said, is faith. Roots are the least glamorous. There's no colorfulness of leaves. Roots must keep pace with the body of the tree, because if they don't increase proportionately, the tree will collapse, okay? But if the roots are strong, the tree will rejuvenate itself. Our faith, ladies, in comparison to roots, is not always glamorous. And what I mean, it is characterized by simple conviction. Amunah pshuta. It lacks the satisfaction that comes from deed. Not always is your faith something that you can do in an action. You know, when you can do a mitzvah l'maisa, you feel like, oh, I've done it, I did it. But faith is not something that you can always touch, okay? It's there and it's deep inside you and it's underground and it's buried. It's like the roots. So what is the purpose of a nisayon, a test? It's for Hashem. Hashem didn't need any proof. It's not for Hashem. It's for us. When we have a nisayon of our faith, we have a test to our faith. It's for us to see what we really had inside me. After a nisayon, we often say, I didn't know I had it in me. Now I figured it out. Fruit and seed. Judy, am I doing okay?
You're doing okay.
Okay. Okay. The tree desires to reproduce itself and to spread its seeds, okay? Communicating with others, that's what we're doing here, is a way of spreading our message and our seeds. A seed is essentially tasteless. We must understand that the only way to truly impact on others is by conveying our own simple faith. I said to my students yesterday, I can talk to you, I can tell you beautiful Torah thought, but if I don't walk the walk that I talk, my words will not have an impact on you. We have to walk the walk, okay? So, as opposed to Socrates, for those of you who know who Socrates is, everybody does, the famous philosopher, he was once found doing an irresputable act. I won't mention what. And what did he say to his defense? He says, now I'm Socrates the man, okay? We don't have that in Yiddishkeit. We are who we are, inside and outside. And the seeds that we hope to reproduce are hopefully within the investiture, that's a good word, of what we are and we put into that individual. Traditionally, at this point in the calendar, we have suffered through the thickest, darkest part of winter. The weatherman said Thursday it's going to be nice. I told my students this does not have anything to do with anything outside of Israel. Tu b'shvat, ashkedia pohachat. I'm staring at each tree that's blossoming here. The songs that we sang as little kids, we see it all around Tzfat, we see it everywhere. And the inclement weather, which is Gishmei Bracha, which I kid when I tell Judy that on three winters I'm here, I bring the snow. That's in my suitcase. Okay. We only have minus a million, and I'm not joking. It was minus 23 Celsius. You don't even know what those numbers are. You don't know what it means to walk in that temperature, okay, and to breathe in it. That being said, so the little bit of a cold snap here is Baruch Hashem. Okay, well, it's welcome. Yeah. Canada's colder than Russia. Canada is colder than most parts of Russia. Yeah. Okay, I don't want to lose my time. All right. We're making just so at this time of the year, ladies, the sap, the resin rises in the trees, okay? And Tu B'Shvat in Israel, okay, traditionally, we're moving from winter to spring, right? Now, if we look at the Jewish calendar as if it was on a clock, that clock's not working, okay? But if we look at it as a clock, then the transition, we're not at the matrix between winter and spring, which is about 3 to 4 a.m. on the clock. Don't ask me to do the math. That's what it is. So if it's 3 to 4 a.m., it's sort of like we're exiting the darkest part of the night, and now we're coming to the light. The days are getting a little bit longer, and Shabbos is coming in a little bit later. And it's a beautiful time, and it's a time to have our special Suda, which I want to talk about. I had so much fun in that food store yesterday. I bought it out. I said, this is like heaven. 3 minutes is giving me. Okay. You want me to come back next week? Okay. Okay. So spiritual growth requires faith in ourselves. Let's talk about the 4 things that a tree needs. It needs soil. It needs water, which is like Torah compared to water. It needs air. Trees need air. Remember we said the man is compared to the trees, okay? You weren't there when he said it. In the trees, it's necessary for respiration and CO2 and photosynthesis. And in Breshit, it says that Hashem breathed in neshama, breath is the neshama. And metaphorically, it comes in with air. So we need the air. Human beings need the air. The trees need the air, and they need fire. They need the sun. They need the warmth. And as humans, we need the warmth of compassion. We need the warmth of friendship. So here's another example of how we compare to the trees. Okay, now the Sheva Minim. I'll do them fast. Wheat and barley, I won't even speak about them, okay? Grapes, all right? The defining characteristic of grapes is joy, where it says in Sefer Shoftim, my wine, which makes me joyous, Nichnas yain yatsa sod, that's for Purim, okay? And wines and grapes unleashes the potential for joy in our life, and it adds depth and color. So we eat grapes. Then we have the fig. The fig represents involvement, and why? I know people think that the fruit that Adam ate was an apple. It is not, okay? Steve Jobs took that as a symbol, but it's not. The Gemara has a debate on it, and whether it was a fig, whether it was wheat, whether it was an apple. Let's say that it's wheat. Fig represents involvement because Adam just couldn't help getting involved in it. I mean, Hashem said, you've got the whole Gan Eden here, right? Just stay away from that one little tree. And Adam says, no, I need it. I got to try it. There's a whole, that's for another class, okay? Now, pomegranates, okay? The rimon, which are beautiful now. Shira shirim. Your temple is like a piece of pomegranate within your locks. The pomegranate is not just a model for something that contains many particulars, the little areoles inside. It also addresses the paradox of how an individual can be empty and at the same time full of good deeds. Just like the seeds of a pomegranate are each one wrapped up in its own sack of pulp. You know, it's a job to take it apart and clean it apart. And the same way it's possible symbolically, listen to this, for a person to do many good deeds, because the rimonim, we say this on Rosh Hashanah, right? We should be right, okay? A man can have deeds, but they cannot affect his nature if he's doing them for ulterior motives. A chesed that you do, that is for acclaim, or is to be known. The biggest level of chesed is the chesed shel emes, the chesed of b'tzniut. So just like that seed can be something that's positive, but if it's enclosed in the aril, it can sometimes block you from really, really getting the merit that you deserve, okay? And the olive, we have to close with the olive. You know, us Jews, we're best when we're pressed. Well, I said to the ladies yesterday, okay, these are Gentiles, potential Jews. I said to them, I'm living in the land of Israel, whether I'm here or not. I'm hooked up continuously on our Basra and my Israeli sources. I don't read Canadian news or American news or any English news. I read only. And so I'm saying to you that here we are. We just received our hostages. They're saying on our Basra that now where the country is in the trauma that it was on October 7th, because people are opening up again to what we saw and the horrifics, and we're seeing people come. People are bleeding. People are bleeding. I have many Israeli friends and bleeding and reeling and connected with what we're reliving again now and we're seeing. So we are best when we're pressed because we are ad hanitzachon. And I have a adopted grandson here, Chayal Golani, who served in Lebanon. And I'm telling you, it's ad hanitzachon. They're going to be with us for Shabbos. So the olive, okay, is an incredible example of the nes and the nisyonot that we face. And that we have to remember that Hashem gives us our challenges because He wants to bring out the best inside us. And the date is perfection, okay? The olive is contrasted to the date, which represents our capacity for peace and tranquility. Tzaddik kanamar yifra, okay? Even though we're blessed and we're pressed, we often bring out the best of us when we can be calm and serene and in touch with ourselves and at peace with ourselves. So my bracha is, and I'm really speeding up, that we take the lessons of the trees and the fruits and strive to be Jews who are involved like the fig, joyous in life like the grape, and may our struggles in life yield the finest oil, and may we be blessed with peace and harmony in our lives, symbolized by Tzaddik etamar yifrach, eretz balavan yitzkeh. Thank you. Oh, yes.
Just one quick note, the reason God has the power to implant this seed that you so beautifully spoke about is this is the holiday that comes out in the 11th month on the 15th day. Right? 15 is Yud Hey, and 11 is Vav Hey. So this is the holiday that incorporates all 4 letters of the tetragram.
Wow. Beautiful. Beautiful. And it's at the second half of the month that the energy comes down. Shvat is the apex changing, and starting from the 15th, the full energy of this day.
Wow.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Esther. Glad to have you back. Glad to
Even
to
more
share your
glad to
Torah.
be back there. Even more glad to be back.
Okay. All right. So we began last week. We're talking about a whole new set of halachos. We're talking about the mitzvos bein adam lachavero, the laws that govern interpersonal relationships. And so just, so we shouldn't get too warm and fuzzy. Where's Ilana? We're starting with lo tisna, don't hate. Okay. Here, I'll start with a little bit of a story. So it says, when the Friedmans moved into Shimon's building, Shimon tried to make the new family feel welcome. He was a bit surprised at Mr. Friedman's cool response, but it did not daunt him. He continued to make friendly overtures and offering his help and advice freely. After a few days, Shimon began to feel increasingly uncomfortable. Not only did the new neighbor, not only was he unresponsive, but for some reason, he seemed to be holding a grudge against Shimon. Not only did he not respond to Shimon's greetings, it seemed Mr. Friedman was going out of his way to annoy him. Not good. Shimon sensed feelings of animosity growing within him, but with enormous effort, he managed to restrain himself and did not say a word, keeping his burgeoning feelings of antagonism locked tightly away. It isn't easy, Shimon told himself, but at least I'm doing the right thing and holding back my feelings. Well, not so fast, Shimon. Maybe not, because we have the mitzvah in the Torah. It says, lo tisna et achicha b'levavecha. I'll finish the rest of the pasuk a little later. You should not hate your brother in your heart. So just because you don't act in an obnoxious way, the fact that you are carrying around these internal negative feelings would also be a violation of halacha. Okay, this mitzvah to not hate anybody, it's a requirement for men, for women, all, at any time. It applies to children, and you should actually begin to, train your children quite early on. A house, in front of your children, they should not hear, "I can't stand that, Mr. Free." They shouldn't hear a word of any negative feelings that you have. And so the mitzvah basically is that you shouldn't hate your brother, meaning any kind of Jew. Any Jew would be, you shouldn't hate. I mean, there are certain, we'll get to this later, certain situations where you are supposed to hate. It does not apply to non-Jews. You are allowed to hate non-Jews. What?
You should not, because of animosity.
Okay, but it's certainly not proper for anybody to hate anybody, right? You don't want to create any kind of embarrassment for Jews in front of non-Jews, so you don't you don't hate anybody, and it tends to take over you. Hate, it's hard to limit negative feelings to here. The hate stops here. It goes out. It goes into the world. So are you really? Is that good what he did? Like he's holding it in, nobody sees it. No, he doesn't. His neighbor doesn't know what his feelings are. So just on with our story of Shimon. So he came across a halacha that hatred in the heart is the basic prohibition of sinah, and that you're not supposed to hate somebody in his heart. So he's thinking, okay, so I've been putting in all this effort trying to hold back my feelings, and really I should just come right out and tell him what I'm feeling. So the next time he sees, Friedman, and he says, "I want to tell you something, Friedman," and he you did this and you did this and you did this and you said that and you were mean and instead of being silently angry with him, they now have this full-fledged rivalry. Like the whole thing blew up. It just got much more. Okay, so what are we really supposed to do? First of all, I mean, just talk about how you feel when you're angry at somebody and when somebody is done. I'm not talking about a family member, but let's say even somebody.
Family members are hardest.
Okay, that's why I'm taking it out of that situation. Or car, but so somebody does this really terrible thing, right? It's mean, it's nasty, and you're holding your feelings. What do you do with those feelings? They don't just, poof, gone, right? Where do you keep those feelings? How do you kind of, so that's the challenge, really. I mean, there are people who work on themselves constantly. They think about it, try and, all kinds of methods people use to try and to dispel this hatred. You think about, well, look how nice he is to his son, and look how pretty his front door looks, and look how, because I can't get in past the front door. Look what you try and think about the positive facts. You try and think about what it does to you, but eventually. You probably have to clear the air. And actually the pasuk, which is from Vayikra, Yud Bet, lo tisna et achicha b'lavavecha, then it continues on, Ochiach tochiach es amitecha. Okay, so you should certainly rebuke your neighbor, which can mean, I gotta watch my time too, which could mean so you need to talk to them. And if a person does it properly, this is what he says, if you do it properly with the proper tone, and you say to somebody, it's not attacking him, why'd you throw out my boo-boo? Why'd you, then the person will either give an explanation for what you did wrong or why he did it, or he'll say, "I'm sorry, I didn't know it was important to you. I'm so sorry." I mean, that would be the ideal. That's for sure. And then sometimes it doesn't really quite work. So I mean, sometimes sometimes it explodes. Sometimes, no matter what, there are people who are not. We also have a mitzvah not to say something if you know that the person's not going to listen to it. So it's a very it's one of these kind of very delicate situations. So I mean, I think ultimately, you can take care of your own heart. You have to take care of your own feelings, and hopefully eventually it'll get resolved. So that's it. Yes, please.
I'm sorry, because I know I just walked in, but as soon as you said that, Sharpie talks about this.
Yes.
And basically, you have to, if you learn Sharpie's tone, then you'll know how to deal with situations like this, which is whether you get insulted or whether you get complimented from him.
Right.
Judy, I hear somebody said it's never about us.
It's not the
You
other
have to
person.
understand it.
Right.
It's never about us. Something broke inside the
Not
story.
the other
The
person.
story
Also,
will
the
stay,
ability to
enjoy,
give something
it's
is
not
very
never do anything with it. Something inside the story
True
is
halacha.
there. Maybe person is in pain. Person is in pain, you need to put this pain out in the return proper way.
Right.
If we don't know what's going inside the person,
No.
instead of being pain, we have to have compassion. Something's wrong. And if you have compassion, we cannot talk the person when we angry in the will. We need to find something inside of us. Compassion.
Very
And
good.
after this compassion, but not right away. Wait a little bit until everything settles down and think more about it.
Right.
And out of compassion, is
Right.
I understand you see something.
Very good.
And I forgive you, but please, it hurt me too. This is not the come from, not from anger, from compassion, not from love, from compassion.
But also of your own divine soul and the other person's divine soul. So look for the love within yourself and the love within the other person. Try to.
You're right. It is a matter of love because if you do get into a whole thing with him, okay, so you're not carrying, you're not hiding the anger in your heart, but you're over on the Hochstadter Rechov HaPalmach. You don't hate, you don't love this person the way that you're supposed to. So you're right. There is love that has to come into the, but certainly compassion is a major part of the process. And it's something.
Difficult to find love, but compassion we can find. Compassion we can find. Love is very, I don't know.
It could be like the farm, it could be healthy and fine and fun.
That is a way. That's absolutely a way to do it. That's right. It's a good way to deal with it.
Something if you're angry with somebody because you've been slighted or light or they lost something you're away, but